absolutely one of my favorite poets from the area, Stacia Fleegal. Now, a lot of you might know her as a blogger, reporter, celebrity guru of all things related to poetry, but you might not have actually gotten to hear her own words. So before we do anything else, coming from her new book, Antidote, the poetic stylings of Stacia Fleegal.
Yard lesson for Jonathan. I've done all the things women do to disencumber, like cut my hair shorter, sassier. Then I'd emblematize the act like a wedding ring tattoo. Few have made me cry or want to stay, their earth replete of mica, minerals. But you hold all of me like a salamander you pull up from the slippery, cold murk. I'm 31 today, an elemental in our yard with my human rake and pain, unafraid of snakes, of what I might turn over with a hunk of quartz and what I know is pyrite. The stone that cools my hands at least is real. The other tricks with too bright flakes, sun-warm but worthless. I know the difference. The wind curtains my face with growth that does not strangle. Philosopher for Jackson. If you really are an old soul, I try to imagine your smile as anything but an eclipse. That you would feel cheated, strapped by a ventilator into a tiny, jaundiced body I couldn't help you build. Or later, limbs and head pulled under your someday bed, away from feared, loveless, penniless, raised voices. Is a thought arriving easy as an exhale? I think of the eyes of sea turtles, the lip of the water and Everest for their sandy babies. I think of the oil slicking like a poisoned lip balm, the life they instinctually flop toward, and their mother's eyes, watching through 200 years of human murk. If we were turtles, you would be the mother. I would be flopping, as I always have, trying to turn sand to pearls. If you really are an old soul, stay with me, I think. I have so much to learn. I think, stay, and you do, and you smile, and it is genuine. It is. I teach myself in the old way. Antidote for Jackson. Your name is a town I've never been to, and I've never loved a Scorpio before. Breath is a fishbone in my throat when white-coated needles swarm you, and I know I could fight venom with my hands, but don't. When did this happen? When was our constellation drawn? I read about you now when I reread my younger syllables, breathed from a sore throat, disease I couldn't name, naming the only cure. Lapis lazuli, Egypt's goddess Circuit, stings from both sides of love when I hunt for scorpions, mythology of your totem. She who tightens the throat, she who causes the throat to breathe. I name you everything because the real cure is no longer believing in opposites, the apothecary says while bottling the air. It only takes a bit of what we think will kill us to save our wretched lives.
Wow.
Thank you.
So talk to me about Antidote. This is like literally just coming out.
Yes, and it literally just came out of me. Antidote, writing saves. I think you believe that too, Carla. I think that's why we get along so well. So when I had my son 3 months premature, a very good friend advised me to just write my way through everything. Those days where I couldn't make sense of anything, to just sit down and write and let the sense of it come later. And it's amazing advice from anyone, a writer or a human being. And I took it, and it definitely worked. It definitely helped me to get through. And the poems were written kind of in a white heat. Some of them are for Jonathan, Jackson's father, and then half are for Jackson. And once I had compiled enough of them, that same friend with that awesome advice also happens to have a press. And she said, let's do an ebook, let's hurry up and put it out, and let's do it the week of his original due date. And So my last trimester was spent, what would have been my last trimester was spent writing these poems, and now they're out.
So what were some of the emotions that were coming through in that book? What were you thinking as you were preparing for him and after he was born that you needed to get a book about it?
Well, I think that something that was really difficult for both Jackson's father and I was being thrust into all this medical terminology and medical situations we didn't, prior to this, know anything about.
Right, because how premature was Jackson?
3 months.
He was a full 3 months early.
25 and a half weeks he was born at, and just past the point of viability. 24 weeks is the point of viability. So as soon as he could survive outside, he came. And he came the day of Hurricane Sandy and full moon and just everything.
Everything,
so,
everything all at once.
So just to try to make sense of all of that was really the main motivation behind my friend's advice, and what I took to heart, and what I was keeping in mind while I was writing the poems. But sifting through, I needed a place where I could use my own words to talk about it, as opposed to all the medical terminology that was being thrown at us, the books we were reading, and blogs and sites that I was visiting to learn more about prematurity and things like that.
So it was a way to put it into your context, a way to put some heart and some humanism back into a very technical.
Absolutely.
Now, this was not your first foray into poetry. You're actually one of the biggest poetry activists I know. You are poetry everywhere.
Well, besides you, yes. I like to think of myself that way, so thank you.
I'm totally happy to tie with you on that one. So now, aside from Antidote, which is available from Winged City Press.
WingedCityPress.com as an ebook for $2.99, and then you can order by special order handmade print copies as well, which are gorgeous.
That is super cool. Why go with the handmade on demand as opposed to a larger run of just something standard to put out in stores and carry around with you?
I guess because the chapbook form itself I love so much. The small, it's like a third of the size of a full-length collection of poetry, and I think that there are a lot of little mini print presses that are doing really, really beautiful, like the artifact. The book is an artifact, and I would say Wing City chapbooks are gorgeous. But if you're that person who doesn't have a Kindle or doesn't have a Nook, and you still want the handmade, you still want to hold it, and chapbooks are affordable and they're accessible. They're easy to get a hold of and trade back and forth. And they actually originated as little pocket books that they have a very kind of working class, do-it-yourself pamphlet sort of history to them. So I like that too. But yeah, so if you want to hold it,
Yeah, I still like to hold my poetry. I'm a traditionalist.
Me too.
So now, aside from your books, you also have an online journal.
Yes.
Which that's the writings of tons of different authors who submit.
Nationally and internationally, actually. We've been very fortunate. I co-founded the same, she really is very integral to my writing life.
This is a very good friend.
The same friend who gave me this awesome advice and ultimately published the chapbook, she and I co-founded a literary journal online called Blood Lotus. And that was in 2006, so this is year 7 for that. And we're about to put up our 27th issue.
Wow.
And
so how often does it come out?
It's quarterly. We got a little bit behind with the Jackson NICU situation, but yeah. But everyone's been really patient with me about that. So, but yeah, Blood Lotus came about because we, in addition to wanting to publish our own work and put our own work out there, we were really passionate about being able to do that for other people. And we had literally no idea what we were doing when we first got into it. We thought, all we need is a website. This is great. And it is more involved than that, just so you know. If you want to start one, it's more involved. But yeah, we've been doing that for 7 years, and we have a pretty decent following of people, and people seem to really like the journal. We publish poetry, fiction, novel excerpts, as well as short stories. We get a lot of flash fiction, flash prose, things like that.
So for those that are not in the know, flash fiction and prose is super short.
Very short, yes.
Very short pieces.
And it's poetry with no line breaks,
Nice.
So, and we take art as well. We're very interested in original art. We like photography and watercolors, like real vibrant colors and things like that. We want it to pop on the website.
Very cool. So now the website is?
bloodlotusjournal.com.
So why Blood Lotus?
That it took us a long time to come up with a name, and we just sort of started throwing out words that we liked and putting them together and seeing what sounded good. But we get a lot of feedback about the name. People like the name. They think it's provocative and messy sounding, and and very female too, I think.
So it's more of a female focus?
I think we publish a lot of women, and I think the scale probably tips maybe a little more towards women, but it depends on who's reading for a particular issue. And our fiction editors right now are both guys, so and they seem to publish a good mix of male and female. But I don't think that we have a preference one way or another. But we're obviously very interested in promoting just whatever the best work that comes our way, and that often means saying no to good work because of space constraints. So that's one of the downfalls. But yeah, we do get to put a lot of good stuff out there. So I'm proud of that. And
so now one of the other ways that you get to put art out there is on Versify,
yes,
which is your blog about poetry.
Yes, and the platform for that is through the York Daily Record where I work, and I started that, going on about a year ago now, and they're really, as a journalist, your role in promoting things is a little bit different than the hat that you wear as a literary journal editor. As a literary journal editor, you're curating content, and you kind of have a little bit of say in what's the best, which is very arbitrary and objective.
It's more focused on your personal
taste and
what
maybe
you're looking for.
The theme of an issue, or what might be popular at that time. But as a journalist, it's my job to promote really anyone who wants to engage with us and anyone in the community. So I experimented a lot with the sort of format or the layout of the blog and even its function. I kind of opened it up for submissions of poetry in the same vein as Blood Lotus. And in addition to creating a lot of work, there are a lot of poets in this area, and a lot of people want to see their name in print, of course.
Talent of your county.
Yep. And I became uncomfortable with being a sort of judge of that and sifting through that and saying, okay, I'm going to publish this but not this, and I kind of wanted everyone to have a shot. So I opened up this Poem of the Month contest that we're doing now. We're using a social media tool with an entry form that allows people to immediately self-publish to the blog. So if you're interested at all, you put your poem up there and it's automatically published.
Okay, so now where can people find Versify?
That's yorkblog.com, and that's the blog role for the entire York Daily Record blog platform. And it's /Versify, or you can just scroll and find the Versify blog.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well,
and then the contest part of it comes in when I'll just pick one of the submissions that came in that month and do a post, a short interview with that author, and let them maybe pick the prompt for the next month.
Oh, cool.
I have a little say in governing the subject matter of the poems that are going to come in for the next month. So,
awesome.
Yeah. So send me poems.
Right. If you're a poet, send poems to Versify.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your poetry is amazing, and I totally can't wait to get my hard copy in my hands.
Thank you very much for saying that.
Antidote, because, I mean, aside from what inspired it, the story that inspired it, and find Stacia on Facebook because her son is just adorable.
Thank you.
So we'll have him on here playing his little baby cigar box guitar shortly.
Thank you, and thanks for what you're doing. And yeah, I hope everyone does check out the York blog, York Daily Record blog roll. The Book Buzz blog that the books editor Sarah Chain runs is fantastic. She does a lot of reviews there and is very interested in local content. So for books, go her way, and anything poetry related, contact me. And I hope that people take advantage of that and know that those things are out there. And all right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm here with Daniel Walczyk. He's the artist for the incredible artwork you see on my set today, and he's also the co-owner of Vulcania with his partner Sean. They do fine art reproductions for local artists, and they also do incredible original artwork of their own, which is produced in one of the most amazing processes you'll ever hear about. Okay, this art up here looks like the most incredible paintings in the world, but it's really not, right?
No, these are actually a series I started. I was pouring my half and half into my iced coffee one summer and got fascinated about how the the half and half rolled and blended and melded with the coffee before you stir it.
Right.
So I grabbed my iPhone real quick and snapped a picture just to see if, what it would be like if I blew it up and looked at it more closely. And I was so fascinated with it that I decided I should get my big boy camera out someday and actually set the shots up and start with different amounts of cream and just see what happens. So I set up on our back patio in Wrightsville when we were in Wrightsville and spent probably 6 or 7 hours over the course of, each day I spent 6 or 7 hours photographing cream and coffee for just tons of shots, and then I'd take them into the computer, and you don't have absolute control, obviously, over your material, so you just have to take a lot of shots and then go back and review and edit and
So now
see
all
what
your
works.
art is digitally based. It originally starts with photographs.
Digital photograph, and mostly I start with nature photography, florals and those kinds of things. And I do more traditional, quote unquote, straight photography for the purists out there.
Who needs purists?
Yeah, I did a series on the Susquehanna River that's called Susquehanna Simpatico, and many of those that series started out as long exposure images of the water flowing over rock, and there was.
So how does the photographs come out looking different if they're long exposure versus short exposure?
Well, when you're shooting a moving subject like flowing water, the water smooths out, and that's how those those waterfall pictures where the water looks like mist and it's very smooth. That's from the long exposure, and as the water's moving, it's smoothing everything out, and you lose detail. So it has that airy, fantasy kind of look to the waterfall when everything else is crisp and clear.
So you do all kinds of manipulation with the photography, and then when you have the picture, how do you turn it into the artwork that we have here?
The coffee series is mostly just pretty standard, what we call digital darkroom kind of work, and it's work that you could technically do with chemicals in a standard darkroom if you were working with film. So there's dodging and burning. Dodging would be lightening dark areas. Burning would be darkening lighter areas to give it shape and depth and contrast. And then levels and curves adjustments where you can draw colors out that are already there. I mean, I haven't added any color to any of these. It's color that existed in the original shot, but by changing and manipulating levels and curves, you can draw out more depth from the color and get better gradations. So these were pretty standard workings. The smaller images on the screen, I wanted a more square, standard kind of. I was shooting most of them in a pint glass from my old drinking days.
In the pint glass.
In the pint glass, and so I mean the original images, I was only shooting an area about 2 inches by 3 inches.
So you do a lot of blowing stuff up, shrinking it down.
Yeah, so those were called macro shots, where you're doing very hyper close-up work. And then, if your exposure is good and your clarity is good, you can go up to huge sizes. The bigger ones on the screen are all printed at 24-inch by 36-inch.
Okay, so now I'm cheating here because I know you told me that you have been asked this before. So how do you respond when people say to you, well, is what you do really art, since it's mostly taking a photograph, which you admittedly do take, but then instead of painting it, it's cutting and pasting, it's lightening and darkening, but it's not actually creating something new. It's just more manipulating something that's already there.
Well, I don't know. I think there has to be a creative mind behind I mean, how many people do you know that take pictures of their iced coffee and their cream?
I've never asked. I have to do that.
I get strange looks out when I'm hiking or, in a park and I'm inches away from the bark of a tree taking a picture, and people wonder, well, what could you possibly be taking a picture of? And well, it's like, well, give me, 30, 40 hours on the computer and you'll see what I'm taking a
30,
picture
40 hours?
It can be sometimes in constructing
So putting together the pieces and cutting out little shapes. Now, I know you did a series of clockworks where you actually had to take the pieces of the clocks and you actually cut them out, and said it took you like hours to actually cut out each gear of the clock.
There was a clock face that I was particularly interested in, but under the conditions we were shooting, there was no way to get a good clear shot, and it wasn't about just getting a picture of a clock. We were asked to create artwork for an event at the National Watch and Clock Museum for one of their gala events, and so we were given access to the museum after hours, and we could shoot within the museum, and we got to go into their storeroom and pull old parts out that they weren't displaying. And so Sean and I then sat, this was 6 or 8 weeks before the event, we were allowed in to do this, and then with the assignment of creating artwork for the event, and we sat and talked for probably 3 hours short of the 6-week deadline about time phrases like a stitch in time saves 9, and all these different time phrases came up. So you start thinking about time, and I created a little mini series, sort of loosely based on Dante's Inferno. There was or Dante's Divine Comedy. There was
that sounds pretty artistic. That's artistic.
An Inferno piece, a Paradiso piece, and a Purgatorio piece.
Wow.
And so in developing those, then I pulled from some of my landscape photography, some of my aerial photography, some of my water photography to build backgrounds, and then layer in pieces and parts of clocks and gears from clocks.
Incredible. So now, where can people find your art?
They can find it online on our website at vgafa.com, which is Vulcania Graphics and Fine Art acronym. Or they can come to our studio at 122 West Philadelphia Street. We're open for first Fridays every Friday of the month, or every Friday of each month from 5 to 9.
Right.
Typically, we work by appointment during the week. We're open Tuesdays through Fridays 10 to 6 and Saturday 10 to 2. We prefer to make appointments so that we can deal more personally and individually with each artist that comes in, and oftentimes we're proofing work that we're reproducing for them, so it takes some time for them to look at the image overall and then examine closely the...
So it's not just like snapping a photo of a painting and printing it up to do a fine art reproduction.
Right, because once the photograph of the artwork is taken, you have to size it up to original size, is the way we like to work first, so that you get all the detail crisp and clear. And then we have a hard time with what we call it. It's because color matching is kind of a misnomer. You can't absolutely ever perfectly match color that painters are mixing with paints, in a digital sense. So we call it color adjustment, and the key is to get values matching as best as possible and colors as close as humanly possible for viewing. And then
so trying to make the reproduction of the art look as much like the original as possible.
As possible, right. And that includes, texture and details like that, as well as color. So, you sharpen and sharpen the image and go for clarity and go for color correctness. And all of those things then also depend on which type of substrate, paper or canvas, that they're going to print it on, because each paper and each canvas handles the color differently than the other.
So now, did you learn these skills when you were trying to create your own art, or did you start doing your own digital art after already having learned the graphic design?
Kind of, we sort of in tandem. We actually got our first large format printer when a client for another company where Sean worked was tired of them not being consistent with their pricing, and we said, well, we can do better than that. And we didn't even own the printer yet. And the gentleman decided that he wanted to use our company. When can he come by the studio to see the printer and see our work? So we quickly bought a printer and literally...
Quick, buy a printer.
Literally...
Of course we can do that. Of course we can.
Literally rolled the first thing I ever printed, literally rolled off the printer 2 hours before he arrived at our studio.
Wow, nice. Now, I happen to know another little secret about you, because most of my artists that come on here, it turns out they're not just creating in a vortex, so to speak. The ones that are poets might actually be closet musicians. The ones that are artists might actually be closet digital masters. Now, you don't put it out there too much, but I happen to have heard a rumor that you have an internal poetic side, which you know speaks to me. So if I twisted your arm terribly, would I be able to make you drag out one of your poems that you have done?
Yeah, you can. And I actually brought the one that we were talking about. I don't write a lot anymore. I still write down snippets, and this one I have to get out because I don't have it memorized. But it was a love poem that I wrote basically for Sean, not too long after we met, and not too long before he moved from Columbus to Lancaster, where I was living.
Wow! So you got him to move for you?
Well, he moved, and I said, I think you better come visit Lancaster before you make the decision to move here to make sure that you like it, because I was willing to move. And his family was in Ohio, and my parents had just retired to the Rossville, Ephrata area. And so I said, well, we could move to Pittsburgh, and it'd kind of be between the two. And so anyway, I don't know. I mean, I keep going back to this one because there's something about some of the cadences that I don't like, and
stop.
But I haven't figured out how to fix it yet, so it still exists like it did when it first just kind of rolled out, and it's called "Alas, Poor Poet." And you'll see the other art influences as I read it. So, alas, poor poet. If I were a painter, neither the brilliance of my palette nor the gentility of my strokes could capture all the beauty held within your humble gaze. If I were a sculptor, neither from a precious metal nor in a block of stone could I forge a simple figure with the grace I see in thee. If I were a composer, neither in a fiery tango nor through a symphony could I measure out a melody as sweet as your hello. Alas, I'm just a poet, nay, a simple-minded wordsmith with no finer words than these to conjure up the splendor held simply in your name.
Oh,
So
that would totally make me move across the country. I'm serious. So fine art reproductions, love poems on demand. Come to Vulcania.
One love poem, yeah.
Awesome.
There's only one, and he's it. So.
Oh, well, thank you for coming out and for letting us use your incredible artwork today.
Oh, thank you.
This stuff is amazing.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for this awesome project to enliven the arts and get us out there to.
The arts in York are
community.
live. I'm just putting it on TV. That is it.
But
the scene hears.
But what a great help to everybody because it gets it more out there and in front, and that's awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, our next guest is one of the most out there artists in all of York County, and I absolutely mean that in terms of his popularity. But if you haven't heard of the king of cigar box guitars, Shane Speal, where have you been? Shane Speal.
This is a song about the myth of the Jersey Devil. A lot of people don't know the history. What happened, they say it was back in the 1700s. A woman named Mother Leeds gave birth to 12 children, 12 sons to be exact. Now she got pregnant with the 13th child, and she had such a problem with the pregnancy that during childbirth she cursed the baby. In fact, she cursed the baby with such an unmentionable curse that the baby was not born a beautiful baby boy. No, it was born a grotesque devil beast. It had fangs, it had fur, it had horns and cloven hooves. And it flew out of Mother Leeds and it killed all of its 12 brothers. And it killed the midwife too. And it looked at its mother. And it screamed the most mournful cry. where it flew out the window then and went to live in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, where to this day, murders have been attributed one by one by one to the Jersey Devil. So this is the song, Mother Leads. New Jersey's bleeding from the pines up to the coast. Some saw a demon while another thinks they saw a ghost. Bat wings in the air, devil in the wild. Nobody knows what Mother Lead said when she cursed a newborn child. Was 13 son born to a common man, down in a common town, born in the barren land. Soon it became a thing they all reviled. Nobody knows what Mother Lead said when she cursed a newborn child. Oh, Mother Leads, you spewing curses while New Jersey bleeds. Oh, what they said, Lord, make that monster kill. Make that monster kill today. Yeah, I killed his brothers first, each one laying dead. Big wife screamed while the poor boys bled. Then it flew to Barrington, oh, to paint the town red. Nobody knows what Mother Lead said. Nobody knows what Mother Lead said. Oh, Mother Lead, you spewing curses while New Jersey bleeds. Oh, what they said, Lord, make that monster kill. Make that monster kill today. New Jersey's bleeding from the pines up to the coast. Someone saw a demon while another thinks they saw a ghost. Bat wings in the air, devil in the wild. Nobody knows what Mother Lead said when she cursed a newborn child. Bat wings in the air, devil in the wild. Preach and praise to God, oh, while the body's piled. No one knows what Mother Lead said. Nobody knows what Mother Lead said when she cursed a newborn child. No one knows what Mother Lead said. Oh, Mother Leads, you spewing curses while New Jersey bleeds. Oh, what they say, Lord, make that monster kill. Make that monster kill today. Right. This song takes a little bit of a different turn. Now, as I perform, a lot of times I'll have just a t-shirt on and my sleeves rolled up. People see tattoos on my arms. And they'll ask me about the one tattoo, and you see Charlie Brown and a little red-haired girl watching the sun go down. And they say, well, you know, what's the story of that? Of all tattoos, you get Charlie Brown and a little red-haired girl. I said, well, when I met my wife, I felt like Charlie Brown finally got the little red-haired girl to go out with him. So as I was writing my last album, I came up with a song titled Tattoo of You, because I was thinking of her. But instead of going through the poetry and writing specifically about her, I wrote the story about a World War II sailor. World War II sailor that gets a tattoo of his girl on his arm before he goes off to war. And the song tells the story of that tattoo going into war, coming back home, and all the years later. So this is Tattoo of You. I got this tattoo of you way back in 44. Was just a young sailor heading to a bloody war. Oh, the tattoo was amazing. You were looking so fine. You had flowers in your hair and soft and curvy lines. And I wore it like a badge, babe. Yeah, I wore it like a medal of honor. Just a tattoo of you so everyone can see I belong to you, babe. You belong to me. Just a tattoo of you. You came with me through Paris and out along the Rhine. It's just like you went with me, stayed with me all the time. Oh, and when I got back home, our kids would trace the lines as I held them in my arm. You'd sing them nursery rhymes and I wore it like a badge, babe. Yeah, I wore it like my medal of honor. Just a tattoo of you so everyone can see I belong to you, babe. You belong to me. Just a tattoo of you. Oh, yeah. Just a tattoo of you so everyone can see I belong to you, babe. You belong to me. Well, I'd always roll my sleeves up, even when we both went gray. Show that old tattoo of our young and wild days. You've been gone several years. When I just can't fight those tears, oh, I'd roll up my sleeve, babe, to that tattoo of you. I'm still wearing it like a badge, babe. I'm still wearing it like my medal of honor. This tattoo of you. I miss you. Oh, Lord, Lord, I miss you. Just a tattoo of you so everyone can see I belong to you, babe. You belong to me. Tattoo of you. I got this tattoo of you way back in 44. I was just a young sailor heading to a bloody war. See, been told I got time for one more. Okay. Well, Miss Carla told me that this show was all about the York art scene. When we're talking about poetry, art, and music, well, this song originated in York. In fact, I was performing. Now, I didn't write this. I was performing at the First Capital Dispensing Company in downtown York. And a couple of the guys from Live came in, and they were, laughing, looking at my cigar box guitars. And Chad Taylor came up to me after I was done and said, "I dare you to do one of our songs on a cigar box." So, of course, if anyone dares me to do something, I go off and do something stupid like this. This is a Live song. In fact, if you ever had the Throwing Copper CD, you'll notice there was, I think, 13 tracks on the album, but as you played it, there was 14 songs. This is the hidden track, the 14th song off of Throwing Copper, and it's actually called Horse. So, for the guys at Live, hopefully they're tuning in right now. And for everyone else, here's the Cigar Box Guitar debut of Live song Horse. And all the things that you live to say, and all the love that you hide away, I'll pick you up and it'll be alright. I'll pick you up and it'll be tonight. She rode a horse into my head. She rode a horse into my head. Hey, hey, hey. She won't discipline the children, and now they're running wild on the beach, and I don't care. I don't care. Hey, hey, hey. Well, it's the middle of the night and we're here. We're playing dominoes and drinking beer. Oh, I try to think of something deep to say, but my well's dripping dry today. Hey, oh, oh, she rode a horse to my head. She rode a horse to my head. Hey, hey, hey. She won't discipline the children. Oh, no. And my well's dripping dry today. Hey, hey, hey. I don't care. Oh, no, I don't care. Hey, oh, she rode a horse to my head. She won't discipline the children. Now they're running wild on the beach, and I don't care. I don't care. Hey, hey, hey. It's the middle of the night and we're here. We're playing dominoes and drinking beer. Try to think of something deep to say, Lord, but about today. Oh Lord, she want a horse to my head. She brought a horse to my head. Hey, hey, hey. She won't discipline the children. And now they're running wild on the beach. And I don't care. I don't care. Oh, hey, hey, hey.
That was Shane Speal, and I'm back here with him. As well as, okay, do the guitars have names? Is there
Nah,
Lucille?
I haven't given my guitars names. I beat them too much to fall in love with them, I guess.
No cards and letters, please.
Oh,
cards and
no,
letters
no,
on
no,
that
no.
one.
I'm brutal with my instruments, I guess, so.
Now you hand make every one of your own guitars, correct? Or do you ever cheat and buy a Cigar Box guitar?
No, whenever I perform in concert, about 60% of my instruments were made by my friends around the world.
Wow.
You know, because there's a pretty big movement of these things. And like this one is almost an exact reproduction of the type of cigar box guitar I would make. However, it was made by a friend of mine in West Virginia who goes by the name of Tommy O. And he wanted to make me an electrified cigar box guitar, which this is, you know, just. And, you know, so I use this in concert because it's just, you can beat on it, it plays great. And
Is that an eye bolt?
yeah, it's an eye bolt right here. There's another screw up here where the strings go over.
Okay, and what is this on your finger? A socket?
Yeah, it's a 3/4 inch socket is what I use for a slide. The nice thing is if I ever break my slide, Sears will replace it for free, but...
Nice. Warranted parts.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's the idea of the cigar box guitar comes from the Depression era when people couldn't afford they couldn't afford even a guitar out of the Sears catalog, so they'd build their own, jamming a stick through a box and 1, 2, or if they were fancy, 3 strings, and that was it. So the modern movement, we're still finding the wood cigar boxes. It is wood, but we're using other found objects as well, and then old, you know, from old broken guitars, you pull the pickups out, put them in your cigar box guitar, or I know some people that make their own pickups using a sewing machine, and they wind their own, they wind their own pickups as well. But I do build them myself, and the ones I usually make are just simple 2 and 3 string type of instruments that are perfect for a back porch.
So now, where can people hear you playing?
Well,
These cigar box
I am
guitars?
all over York all the time. I have 2 residencies. One is at the Cove every Monday night. They've had a blues night every Monday, and recently they made me the guy there every single Monday. Now, to get people out on a Monday night is kind of a tough thing. So, I came up with a new rule. If somebody shows up at my show at the Cove and they bring their own instrument, they can be part of my band that night. And it turns into this massive blues jam. I've had harmonica players, like people I call living room guitarists. Guys that play guitars in the living room never get out. Well, it's their opportunity. I even had 3 African drummers sit in with me one night, and it was just...
That's awesome.
Oh, it was... I'll be telling my grandkids about that. The other night I do is on Wednesday nights at First Capital Dispensing Company. I run the open mic there. It starts at 9:30, and I always perform for the first set. But since I'm talking to the Poet Laureate here, you'll be glad to know we've extended what we call the Songwriters Challenge. Yes, and poets are included as well. Every week I give songwriters a topic or a scenario, and if they show up the next week with a song, and I tell them it can be a rough first draft, I don't care how bad of a first draft it is, just bring it in just right. Then their name gets thrown into a hat, and in the beginning of May, I'm giving away a Cigar Box Guitar to one of those songs. And I'm not making it easy for them in any
They have to
stretch.
earn the Cigar Box Guitar.
This week's challenge that I gave them was, you're sitting in jail, falsely accused by your lover.
Ooh, I hear the blues strains
You're
already.
sitting in jail,
It's
falsely
playing.
accused by your lover. Right from
Wow.
that vantage point. And I'm working on a song right now called 49 Years, where the singer's talking about he's got 49 years till he gets her back, you know, and the song, as the song progresses, it goes to 27 years. And
Wow. Oh, so now why the Cigar Box Guitar as opposed to the regular?
it was searching
ones?
for a sound. The sound was simply, I discovered the blues many years ago, and it just overtook me. And when you discover the blues, you kind of go back in time. You learn Jimi Hendrix, but then you learn Muddy Waters and Hound Dog Taylor. But then you always step back. A lot of people like me will go into the old Delta guys, Blind Willie Johnson, Robert Johnson. And I ended up, this was before the internet, I wanted to know what came before them. And there really wasn't too much information out there. And I discovered these stories of these guys that were so poor that they had to build their own guitars out of cigar boxes. And I said, that's the sound I'm looking for. One step deeper than the Delta blues. And, you know, the instrument here only has 3 strings. A guitar has 6. There's no frets. The frets are just painted on. I use a spark plug socket for a slide.
Wow. I didn't realize that the frets are just painted.
Yep, just painted right on there.
That's awesome. I'm such a cigar box fanatic.
Oh, I'm such a poetry and music fanatic myself. I mean, that's what we do at the open mic every once in a while. I just show up with a...
That was all me.
Yeah,
that was all me.
That was sweet. I'll show up with a Jack Kerouac book in my pocket, and at midnight, I always wait till about midnight.
That's
to
kind
do
of the
things.
Jack Kerouac
It is.
hour.
It is. And then I'll pull someone out of the audience, open up Kerouac's Book of the Blues, and hand it to him and say, "Read this." And then I get a couple different musicians from the open mic,
Nice.
and it's just a pickup band, and then we start this jam, and then I nod to them, and they start the poem.
Yes. When I met you, it was dissonance. I admit it. I kept my distance. I danced in and out of tune. See, you were a new thing. I play a solo gig, pausing for brief moments of collaboration, but always with a moment of hesitation before I dive in and swim. See, improvisation, it's not my thing. But do you have that music written down somewhere? Because it's pouring in my ear. When you play and it's spilling over down my cheek like rain, or come shine like a jazz song. It's making me enjoy this thing. Now, switching keys, I just got a little bit higher. Hold on, I'm feeling it. I think I'm just gonna ride this note. Maybe play with it a moment and draw it out like blue skies and summertime.
That's
oh my
what
God!
I like.
Let's do one more. Let's do one more.
That's what I like.
Let's do one more. Let's funk it up a little bit. A little attitude. A little attitude.
Okay.
People tell me I walk like the kind of girl who only wants one thing, but I just laugh and say it's okay, 'cause I got everything that I need.
Come on.
See, people tell me I got a little too much flash in my swishing sachet, but nothing they say don't roll off like candy. Me being slick as fresh-tongued sugar beads. I'm sweet as can be. 'Cause people tell me they heard news spilling out, and ain't it lucky they caught those words before they rolled right out the door? I just turn my head, 'cause I got other things to listen to. Like my sweet baby's laugh, rising high above kitchen water and cats meow. See, I know people talk. They do all the things they feel they gotta do, but I just let it roll, 'cause they're all still outside, and I'm in here rolling with you.
Oh yeah, that was sweet.
That was
sweet.
wicked. Oh my God, that was dope. Shane, you're beyond freaking incredible. And if anyone has not checked out the First Capital Dispensing Company Wednesday night open mic, it's the hottest show in town. Absolutely up there. And you might even catch a poet or two jamming. I'm just saying.
I better catch a poet or two.
You better catch a poet or two.
I better see you in there.
I can't wait to check out the Cove Blues Monday night.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to catch all of you next week on Culture and Maine.